Hello, everyone. My name is Christian Roberts. I'm the Director of Education at the Dallas Opera. I'm here with my fantastic friend and co-host,
Quo Johnson, Education and Company Culture Manager for the Dallas Opera.
and we have returned yet again for another episode of Taking the Stage with Christian
And Quo. One of the things we've started doing and one of the things we will continue to do is a land and people acknowledgement. So we want to take this time right here in this moment and in this space to acknowledge that we here in Dallas, we are on stolen land. We're on the land of the Caddo, of the Wichita, and of the Comanche sovereign nations, nations that were forcefully removed from their homes, nations that face genocide, that face inhumane conditions, so that people could claim the land as their own and attempt to erase the existence of these sovereign nations. We want to acknowledge that Dallas is not alone in this, as this entire nation is on stolen land. We then want to acknowledge that people were stolen from their homes and brought here and forced into slave labor, and that these people lived lives, they have families, they have descendants of which we know and of which we are. And we want to continue to acknowledge the truth and understanding that as we continue to do the work necessary to heal the harm, that we must also do the work necessary to connect. We must do the work necessary to complete the narratives that we've received. And we must do the work necessary to bring about something better, which we can all do together. So I thank you for joining me in this land and people acknowledgement.
and we thank you for tuning in every week. We very much appreciate your support. We want to thank you to the Dallas Opera as usual for giving us this platform and the support of the staff and everyone involved there. Of course, for our patrons and subscribers, community support, and just the global support that we've received. We very much appreciate it. So I will hand it over to Quo to introduce our guest today, who we always say is a special guest. This one is close to my heart, and you'll find out why.
I'm really excited. I'm always excited, and we do say that all of our guests are special because all of our guests really
They are.
They are special. They're all dope in their own ways. I am going to introduce a woman whom I met recently and completely just changed so many things about so many things. Just the fearlessness, just the truth, the kindness, the honesty, the commitment to connection, in the work that she does in her organization, which is Break Bread, Break Borders. And so would you like to introduce yourself, Jin-Ya?
Sure. Thank you so much for you two, Kristian and Quo, for holding space for me. So my name is Jin-Ya Huang, and I am the founder of Break Bread, Break Borders. So it is a social enterprise that is developing a culinary program training refugee women from war-torn countries and empowering them with opportunities to share their storytelling through food and culture. So essentially break bread with the communities and break down borders at the same time. Yeah. Thank you.
So, Jin-Ya, I've read up on you, and Quo came back from one of these that you held one time, and she was like, I have to tell you about this. And she has had like this stars in her eyes ever since she went to that, because she said it completely changed the way she was going to do work moving forward. And I was like, when can I come to the next one? You know, because I thought that it was so interesting. So I think I want to start with, what was the inspiration for this work?
Inspiration definitely came from my mom. Yeah. So I grew up in Taipei, Taiwan. And so when my dad lost his job, my aunt and uncle actually called from America and asked if we would like to come and help out the family restaurant business. And so they were doing a Chinese version of McDonald's. It was a chain of fast food in Tulsa, Oklahoma, out of all places. And so I went from Taipei, Taiwan to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And my mom, and dad decided that, you know, when after they had about 16 franchises, my aunt and uncle, you know, were doing pretty well. And my parents decided to purchase one of the franchises down here at Dallas, Texas. And so I joked that I got to Texas as fast as I could have. And yeah, my mom, she was the chef. And so she used to hire immigrants and refugees to come and work in our kitchen. And, you know, train them with job skills and send them on to bigger and better opportunities. And I saw firsthand how that transformed lives. And so when I lost her to cancer, she had multiple myeloma. I was so struck with grief. I needed to turn it into action. And I really wanted to use art to heal. And so I created, yes, I created Break Bread, Break Borders, you know, to continue her legacy. You know, I thought, what better way than, you know, to honor everything that my mom did than to, you know, continue her lifelong work. And so I thought, you know, with Break Bread, Break Borders, I wanted to have these community dinners that basically initiated tough conversations, and but over food, because my mom was so good at this, and she just, you know, and there's always, you know, a mom or grandma or an auntie in every culture that is incredible at this. Food is just such a great equalizer, and as an art form, it is a universal language. And you know, and as a social practice artist myself, I saw this, you know, opportunity that I knew that we were asking, you know, the community what the needs are. And when the community asks for fire, I don't bring them water, you know. And so I thank you. I really just thought, you know, we needed this safe space, not even just safe space, but a brave space to have these conversations. And so at these events, the women don't just cook and share the food. They actually share their storytelling. So they shared their life stories about, you know, who they were before they escaped war-torn countries. And those countries would be, you know, any place like Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Myanmar, or the Congo, you know. And they would talk about what it's like to live as refugees abroad, and how when they first found out coming to America seemed like they had won the lottery. And coming here, what it's been like to cook with Break Bread, Break Borders. And so I still remember the first time I had actually reached out to all these refugee agencies and resettlement agencies, and just, you know, different people I knew who were working in the human rights and asylum seekers, you know, realm. And they actually reached out to their community and found all these people who were interested in cooking with us. And when they all first showed up, like all these, you know, women from Nepal and Myanmar and Syria and Iraq, and they were watching me do this, you know, slide presentation, and just completely deer in headlights, eyes glossed over. You know, it's like, what is this crazy Chinese girl talking about? And, you know, but the moment that I showed the slide of my mom, they just got it. They understood. And, you know, so she's my inspiration to do this work, because she just always was a role model in doing this kind of philanthropy, really. You know, we grew up volunteering at the nursing homes, and because my mom was the chef, she would, you know, cook for hundreds, you know, for the Buddhist Compassion Relief Foundation's fundraiser galas, and, you know, cooking for hundreds of people was like no problem for her. And then, you know, and before she became a chef, she actually was a seamstress, and so she would teach us how to sew blankets for the homeless. And so, like, we were groomed to do this work because she modeled this type of behavior for us. She dragged my dad kicking and screaming, you know, but it was amazing to have that incredible North Star. So yeah, she definitely is our inspiration.
That's very cool. I think that's very, very cool.
Thank you.
I was gonna, you know, you covered pretty much my next round of questions because, you know, I look at this and you said the food is the great equalizer. And, you know, Quo and I both can attest to big family gatherings where food goes across all of the differences of, you know, friends coming over to my parents, coming to my house, you know, growing up, and they have to eat something. Like there's no,
oh no,
get a plate. Okay?
Yes.
Make yourself a plate.
We have to bond.
Yes. Like you're at, my dad always says, you're at home now. You know, if you don't eat, that's your problem. You know, because here it is, you know. And so I think I'm glad that you said that, because, you know, we think about, we look at all the differences that make us up on the outside, right? And they're unique, and they're these beautiful things that are a lot of the time that are turned against us, you know, because there are differences. But when you sit down at the table with somebody and you are doing the thing that every human being has to do to stay alive, that is an equalizer. Okay,
we have to eat to survive. Yes, it's eat. Sustenance. Yes.
And so I think I want to ask next. You said that your mother influenced you with the way that she did it in the restaurant and sending people on to better things when once she had trained them. And so you have put that into the work that you're doing now.
Yes.
So the same model she used in the restaurant, you've now used this as a philanthropic endeavor, correct?
Yes. So what we do is, regardless of anybody's background or language barrier or cultural divide, we have set up a program where we train the women to acquire their food handler's permit or a food manager's license certification. And so if they're getting a food handler's permit, they can, you know, either work for other catering services or other restaurants. And, you know, and some of them we have actually placed in the industry already. And then we have outreach to interpreters that help us translate these tests and, you know, become proctors. And for the women who are interested in starting their own business or have, you know, big aspirations of, you know, becoming a chef, either in their own business or in other restaurants, that they can acquire the food managers certification. And this through a company called ServSafe is actually valid for 5 years in the state of Texas, and it's actually transferable all throughout the nation. In fact, we had a cook that actually her daughter had gotten married and moved to Seattle, and she wanted to move with her to help take care of her and the grandchildren, of course. And so and she was able to immediately find work because she was already certified. And so it's things like that it's a sustainable job skill that is talking about the long-term solution to global migrant crisis. It's not just a short-term, you know, solution of constantly, you know, begging for funding and you know, to to sustain the business. Like, we are a social enterprise for that matter. You know, we wanted to really achieve this economic dignity because the women don't want charity. They want to work. They want to contribute, you know, and we know that investing in women has a tremendous impact on the communities because they will spend 90% of their income straight back into the families, into the children, and into the communities. Whereas in comparison, men only contribute about 35 to 40% of their income back into the communities. And that's a huge disparity, you know, and women tend to earn less. And you know how long it takes, you know, for a Black woman or woman of color, a Latinx woman, you know, to achieve that kind of equity and pay, you know, and so compared to any white person. And so, like, it really was important to us, you know, to have an education program in place. because that's how my mom did it, is,
Mm-hmm.
you know, she taught people, she you know, she would show people, like I still remember she was more fluent in Spanish and Vietnamese and Laos, Laotian, and like you name all the languages. Like, I mean, she knew how to say onion, trash, and all the stuff, you know, chop. And she was so good about showing people what to do. And, you know, and we've definitely had cooks that actually didn't know how to read and write. And we refused for that to be an obstacle. And so what we do is we try to remove those barriers along the way so they can access success, you know, and we make sure the mentors, you know, along the way are also women of color. There's some incredible chefs and caterers and you know, culinary consultants and experts, you know, that we have gotten to come to mentor our women throughout the program. They're Black, they're people from India, they're Native American, they're, you know, different backgrounds that, you know, they're Hispanic, and like, they're definitely, you know, people that our ladies can look up to and say, oh, well, if she can do that, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like setting your foot on Harvard and knowing that you can get there. And I love how their eyes glow up and you know, and shine in those moments, you know, when they know that, you know, they've achieved and accomplished something. Because we have this one gal, her name is Rania, and she used to get really like afraid to cook for lunch for 8 people. And she would just like fret over it and lose sleep. And after she went through the culinary training program, she just, you know, was instilled this sense of confidence that now you know, you ask her to cook for, you know, hundreds and large group of people, like she would not be fearful of it at all, and she would just, you know, take it head on. And those things, you know, are the on-the-job training that comes along with the program. That it's sink or swim. No, I'm just kidding.
Get out
We
there.
handhold them definitely along the way, but you know, it's a village that we're building together, because you know, it's definitely the trainer program, because the women who have gone through the program, they lift as they climb. And so they stay. Yes. It's a must. You know, they, once they acquire their permit or, you know, certification, they stay in the program and then mentor the next group of women that come up that haven't had any training. And you know, to be honest, like, they're already amazing cooks. That's never the problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the challenge is the logistics and operations of running a business or food service business. That is the difficult part of, you know, being here in America. And that is already tough, you know, for English speakers, you know, let alone people who don't have access to the language or the type of network that we do, you know. And so I really tried to think of, you know, what if this is my sister? What if this is my auntie? You know, what if this is somebody in my family that's going through these issues and challenges? You know, what would I do? And we just apply that as we go. My mom definitely, you know, talks about, you know, the 3 things that are super important in our lives is, you know, you always do what is right. And 2, you just, you know, be a good neighbor. And the 3rd thing is, just practice compassion, kindness and compassion every single day. It's sounds easy, but it's you would think, oh, that's not that hard. Like running a business, that's not that hard. No, it's super difficult. But you know, but there are, you know, different entry point that you can do this. You know, times are hard during the pandemic right now. You know, if you have access of network of people that you can introduce people to, who, you know, whoever's unemployed or whatnot, it doesn't hurt to answer that email or that call and say, gosh, you know, I may not know the answer, but I will certainly try to find one for you.
Mm-hmm.
And just point people in the right direction. You know, that could be practicing kindness and compassion. You know, so so those are ways to connect, other than food.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. But that's the thing. It's like we've been very just super fortunate to have those opportunities to really to be in a place to serve the community, to help educate and to people who need it the most. Yeah.
There's so much in what you just said. It's just so layered. Um,
It is.
it's so layered, and I don't know how if people appreciate that layered approach. Quo, go ahead. I see you. Go, go, because I've said a lot. So go ahead, please, by all means.
Yes, ma'am. I will say to all of our viewers, I know like everybody's used to us bringing so many different wonderful guests, and the ways in which we try to make sure that we're connecting it back to the art form, back to opera, back to community. Boards, take note. Young artist programs, take note. Community engagement programs, take note of what it means to create true equity. What it means to say, we want these people to be a part of this process, a part of this art form, and then to put in the additional work necessary to make sure everyone has the tools they need to show up the way they need to show up, and not assuming that people should just come to you already ready. Because even in this example, yes, okay, you don't have your license, or you don't have the access to the language, you don't have, all of these things are barriers. If you are committed to truly making a difference, you will work to remove those barriers in addition to creating your product, because you know your product cannot be created without removing those barriers and without connecting to the people who best suit that product, or without creating to the people who can build that product and then share it with others. So take note. Stop making excuses.
Amen. Amen.
It's gonna take more than you just being, oh, don't you love opera? It takes more than that. And then I'll also say that as we take note, also kind of take heart in that as we do this, it creates community.
Mm-hmm.
It creates community as people lift as they move, right? As we move forward, as we bring others along with us. So we want to be mindful of what that means as we're creating a community that extends farther than we expect, that it extends beyond what we can see. So thank you so much, just in everything that you're sharing, what it means also to continue the work of those who came before us for the 21st century.
Yep.
What it means to do the work of those who came before us, and then to adapt and to do what is necessary in order for it to continue to grow, to continue to thrive here right now for us, while also being mindful of what it means to push this ahead beyond us. And so in this, the ways in which we connect are so important, but the ways in which we commit to connecting are just as important. And I am grateful and I'm glad that you spoke about the ways in which women bring back to the community, and the percentages and the differences, because there are differences. I recall in one session, we had a gentleman who asked, he said, well, have you ever thought about doing this for men? And you were like, no. No, because there are plenty of programs for that. And here are the stats. Here is why. Here is why it makes such a difference. But I also appreciate that as you share, you kind of share in your own story, but center around the fact that it's all storytelling, right? The food is the vehicle. The art form is the vehicle. The purpose is the connection through the storytelling. And so in having had the honor and the opportunity to be one of those who were a part of the dining and a part of the meal and the process. First of all, the food is bomb. The food is good. It's insane. But the connections that come through hearing about someone as they're making something for you, right? Or as something has been made for you in a way to share, but then to also go through the process of finding those connections and those similarities. And this reminds me of this. This
Mhm.
dish reminds me of this. And how we extend that into our art form of this story reminds me of this. This song reminds me of this. This aria reminds me of this. This phrase reminds me of this. I think the connections are always there. Again, it's just our commitment to making those connections and then our understanding of what equity truly means, because it requires taking the additional steps necessary to ensure everybody is in the space and
Yeah.
then being able to create structures that support that space while also acknowledging the humanity of those who are in the space.
That's
And
it.
that's
Yeah.
what we struggle with so much.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Just to
That
have
was the
it.
thing, you know, because I come from a line of heritage and families, you know, my ancestors are, um, they were colonized by the Japanese on the island of Taiwan, formerly known as Formosa. And then, you know, I have ancestors from parts of my family who were refugees who escaped communism to take refuge in Taiwan. And I heard of these stories and I saw the struggles. And, you know, I knew I wanted to honor this art form of storytelling, of oral history, and is very much like the opera. Is, you know, writing these words and songs down and passing them down from generation to generation. And there is something, you're right, about this process, quote, like it really humanizes the people, right? And so you can't hate people up close. You just can't. And, you know, we've definitely had held events where people had never met a refugee before, never seen a Muslim up close, didn't know a woman in a hijab would not be a terrorist. And, you know, asked flat out the women that we work with, why are you here in our country taking our jobs? So it has not all been rosy glasses. It's been tough roads along the way. There are people who ask us to censor our stories and can you just not talk about this, you know, when you come? And it's like, no, this is a part of their life, you
Yes.
know, and it's a part of what we do. And it is a necessity to talk about these difficult conversations because along the way, you do find humanity.
Yep.
You know, the people that do get to experience this and do find out that, you know, these people are not just homeless, they're countryless. You know, think about on that level that they didn't have a choice, that they were escaping wars, and that, you know, this is the only form of safety. And, you know, we're always on the side of freedom. And that's what America should be about, you know. And so we wanted to be able to celebrate that and talk about that. And so, you know, definitely the people who have attended events or, you know, have you know, consumed the stories or the food, you know, one way or the other, you know, we've had people that come up to us and say, you know, I was so scared to try this food. I had no idea what you know, food from Afghanistan or Syria would taste like, you know, but one bite into this this rice, you know, took me all the way back home to Louisiana to my grandma's house. You know, Nana's dirty rice. Like this is, you know, food memories are so powerful and they have such a way of bonding and explaining. It is not logical, it is emotional. And there's something that, you know, that this art form, you know, and that's what art is. It's a universal language. It is able to cross so many barriers, right? And you know, and help us explain so many things that, you know, that is gut wrenching, that I could talk until the cows come home, that words are not enough to express, but that one bite, that it took was that one bite. You know, like my son would say, you know, it's like Ratatouille, mommy. He's 12, he's in middle school, and he's always like trying to, you know, like help me understand all this. And he's like, why don't you name break bread, break borders, like break donuts, break tamales? Like people will understand that so much better, and they'll roll off the tongue better too. You know, it's like, but you know, but that's the thing. It's like, you know, it's not just how we talk about it. It's, you know, how you feel about it, how you read it too. You know, we've partnered with different nonprofits around town, like Make Art with Purpose. One of our mentors, Janelle Ingolstadt, you know, was doing a series of Let's Talk, and she was able to actually help us produce this comic cookbook. And, you know, my son loves graphic novels. And so it's like, okay, we watch anime and things like that together. And I grew up reading manga. And so, you know, like when we found an illustrator of Chinese descent, and she was, you know, already working on a book on her grandmother's recipes. And when she found out about us, she wanted to tell the stories of the ladies. And so she illustrated their life stories and, you know, and their recipes. And, you know, and that, you know, brought another level of that connection. You know, it's in Chinese, you know, you talk about like how when you bond with food, it's like you're bonding with the five senses, you know, and because it's got to look good, sound good, taste good, you know. And even hearing the sizzling, you know, as you know, things that, you know, onions are being fried or whatnot, you know, like right there, it's already bringing all these, you know, memories. And so, but, you know, reading about it, you know, in that format, and it was visually, even if you didn't read, you know, English as a first language or whatnot, like you understood just through the pictures, you know, what was happening. And we wanted that, you know, that using art form to communicate these stories that, you know, that touches your heart and helps you understand the human condition, and how we achieve those, you know, racial equity, how we eradicate those xenophobia, how we, you know, fight the barriers against, you know, gender pay gap, and like so many of those things, you know, we wanted to talk about through sharing food and culture. You know, it's not easy because, you know, there are definitely people that think, oh, you're just running a catering business, or oh, you're just selling food, you know, and then, you know, people discount us, oh, it's just, you know, bunch of women, you know, cooking, or oh, she's just an artist. You know, it's like, no, we're starting a revolution here, you don't understand, you know. And like definitely there are, you know, husbands of these women that we work with that have, you know, asked, you know, are the women getting paid? And, you know, they're not allowed to work unless they get paid. And, you know, they've had to like ask for permission. And, you know, and once they find out, you know, they are, it's okay. But it's, you know, even breaking down those barriers and helping understand, like, you know, what does equality look like? What does equity look like? What does access look like? How do power shift? And, you know, and really taking a different approach to that narrative. You know, some of those husbands now are like, oh yes, listen to Jin-Ya, she knows what she's talking about, and admitting that a woman actually having power, and like, I don't know what you did to my wife, but she only listens to you, you know, and like, you know, joking about things like that, but being even open to the conversation that is, you know, something that, you know, we never imagined, you know, could happen. We didn't know that, you know, like we would get invited to cook for the Bush Institute. You know, we didn't know that we would get all this, you know, organic press and media, and, you know, somehow get in Time magazine, you know, and like, we were like, what? Who is this? Is this a prank call? Like, seriously? I had to Google this, you know, writer. It's like, oh my God, Pulitzer Prize winner, like, you know, and just, you know, getting accepted, you know, to like BBVA Momentum program to be, you know, part of the incubator to learn about social enterprises and possibly scaling, and, you know, or even getting into the social impact work and getting accepted to the Presidential Leadership Scholars Program. Like, just mind blown. You know, we knew we wanted to be here to serve the community in more ways than one.
That's it.
And we put it out in the universe, and it answered. And so, like, we're just super honored to be in this space, really humbled to be able to do this work. Yeah, it's looking at the history and understanding what's happened, and like making sure that we try not to make those same mistakes again.
Yes.
And, you know, and like, what can we do right by the people going forward?
And, you know,
People by the people.
Yeah. So there's so much in what you just said. And I would like to invite folks to take notes, because some of the things that she talks about are not quantifiable. You're not going to have KPIs. You know, there's not going to be charts and graphs for it, because it's hard work. Okay. Empirical is not a bad word.
No.
So I would like soft return on investment is not a bad word.
No.
But that brings me to well, not bad words. Let me correct myself when somebody else say something. But I want people. I think there's a lot in what you just said. There's so many layers, and what you started out to do has blossomed into so many things because you were open to letting it happen, and the people that you are working with are open to letting it happen. And I think we also have to make sure we understand that just because something starts out one way and blossoms into something else, that it's okay for that to happen, that it's likely going to happen. And that because it didn't start the way you wanted it to I mean, that it didn't end up the way you wanted it to look, that doesn't necessarily make it bad. And I think what happens is we get in our boxes.
Yeah.
We have this final product, and the arts, I'm talking to y'all, so just be mad if you want to. Please, by all means, write me, fight me.
Not write me, fight.
Yeah.
But I agree, because, you know, like when I started this out, it was supposed to be an art project. You know, and I joke that I'm the accidental entrepreneur, you know, because like I was just going to have this, you know, great community dinner where we have these tough conversations. I was going to have a couple pop-up dinners, and I was going to move on to my next art project, you know, but the community was like, the ladies came to me and they were like, Jin-Ya, you're so cute. You know, like, community dinners are beautiful, but that's not what we need. What we need is jobs. You know, and like, and I sat there and I was like, okay, you know, my parents were in the restaurant business for decades, and I've done this, you know, how hard could it be, right? You know, and I thought, you know, we'll just, you know, turn it into an LLC and figure the rest of the stuff out along the way. Like, I took all these huge risks. You know, I had a full-time day job. I'm a single mom. I have a kiddo. I co-parent with my ex, and, you know, and he's 12, he's in middle school. And, you know, we've been in existence for about a couple years. And, you know, and he would be like, okay, mommy, you have a day job, and then you have a night job, and then you're a mommy. And, and, you know, and he was just like, you know, like, why are you still working? You know, it's like, because I'm planting seeds, you know, seeds that's going to grow in your lifetime, maybe not mine, but, you know, but I want to plant seeds so this can grow up in a better world than the way I found it. Just like Ama, you know, my mom, Margaret Huang, like, she dedicated her life to make this world a better place for me to grow up in. It is only my job to do that for, you know, my son, the next generation. Even if I didn't have children, I would be doing this for the next generations to come, you know. And that's the thing, it's about education. And so much of this is also about educating people that, you know, as an art form, it can take on a business aspect, you know, and there's nothing wrong, you know, like, you know, if I were in this all about the money and I'm helping people along the way, that, you know, if you're eating and you're making social impact, like, why not do it? You know, it doesn't have to be one or the other. You know, if you only focus on making money, you're forgetting about, you know, just all that financial capital. Where does it go if you have no human capital and no social capital along the way? You know, then it's an empty foundation. That scaffolding is going to crumble. And that's how we have to rethink, you know, how structurally, how the system is built, and really figure out, you know, what are the stronger foundations that really need to be set, you know, so we can really build this community the way we see it needs to be done. And so that's the thing. But you're right, it's like it's reshifting a lot of that.
Yeah, it's the and there's a balance that has to happen.
Yes.
And Quo says all the time, it's going to feel different
Mm-hmm.
because it's going to look different, and it may be uncomfortable. But the bottom line is that we are in a time right now where if we don't shift our thinking, I mean, honestly, seriously, where we are right now, let's just be real. You have to have a flexibility, and you have to have creativity, and you have to have innovation running through your veins, particularly in a time like this. Yes. And that's not to say everybody's going to have all of it figured out. I'm the first one to say I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know.
I've never been through a pandemic.
I'm just
before.
really no.
You know,
and like,
I don't
and
know.
that's the thing. It's like I never know what I'm doing, but I know how to show up.
Yeah,
and,
that's
and
it.
That's the thing. And I always tell the ladies, you know, I may not know how to cook like my mom, but I really know how to take out the trash really well. So just show me the way, tell me what to do, tell me what I can help with. And, you know, and it's so important that we find out what our superpowers are, you know. And I just have always known ever since I was 3 that I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to do something creative, you know. I also knew that my parents, you know, I grew up poor with 5 sisters. It was, you know, really hard for my parents to raise us on a single income. And like, my dad was a mechanical engineer at a cement factory. He came home like twice a year because, you know, like he just had to like work a lot. And also there's a lot of estrogen in the house, but you know, but it was just so tough. Like we, you know, they grew up in these farming villages in the South, and like my mom barely finished elementary school. They didn't have access to higher education. You know, if we were girls growing up in, you know, in Asia, that it was just discounted as girls don't need education. You know, there's a Chinese saying, like, you know, girls are like buckets of water that you basically pour out, you know, that like once you marry into your husband's family, and that you never come back. And so like, they just, you know, they wanted to move us out of those places so things like that didn't happen to us, you know. And like, those kind of thinking don't happen overnight. You know, you really have to shift, and those kind of narratives, you know, really one thing at a time. You know, it may feel like, you know, granules of sand, but, you know, but it will be a mountain one day, you know. But it takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of work. But it takes a lot of us doing this together, you know. Like, I would never want to do this work alone, like, no way, you know. But that's what's interesting is about, you know, having access to the kind of network that we do, you know. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I bet I can find, you know, someone who knows how. You know, let me holler at Kristian and Quo and see, you know, like,
and feel free.
Yeah, I will, you know, and I do. And I think that's the thing. It's like, I guess my parents, you know, didn't expect this. And, but I guess it's not that I'm not afraid. I'm always afraid to ask for help. But the worst thing they can say is no. And then you move on. You know, yeah, I may get my feelings hurt, and then it's just kind of like, okay, one door shut, you know, okay, next, you know. And but it does take, you know, some courage and some thick skin, and just figuring out, like, you know, whatever that looks like. But it's really through all this trying to figure out, like, you know, what your superpowers are. I just always knew that I wanted to be in the creative field, and, you know, and my parents wasted a lot of money on piano lessons and ballet, and those, none of those took. But the art lessons, I remember going to paint, going to draw comics, and, you know, and like, I just loved everything about painting and drawing. And then, you know, later on, I got into photography, and I got into advertising, and, you know, was in marketing and corporate a long, long time. And, you know, and I was able to mesh art and commerce in that way that, you know, I was able to earn a living, but I never stopped my artistic practice. I was still showing my photography, showing my social practice work. And, you know, even though I had a day gig, you know, and so I joke I'm that third shift, you know, entrepreneur, that like
Yeah.
day job, single mom, and, you know,
Yeah.
and night job, and, you know, still trying to do all this stuff. But the thing is, it's like, it's, as an artist, I'm compelled to tell the truth.
That's
And it's not, yeah, like, I cannot not do this. And, you know, I'd go insane. And I'm just really fortunate that people offer me the platform to do stuff like this, you know. And I have that 2-minute elevator pitch down.
yeah.
You know, I do ABC, you know, would you like to help, you know, and it's surprising how many people listen, you know. And I basically just became that squeaky wheel, you know, and a really squeaky wheel. And I guess it's knowing that like I have this superpower, and I have been the recipient of so much grace and generosity. It's only my time to pay it forward, you know. And like, it's just, it's my duty. And so I think, you know, as a global citizen, I think we really need to unpack, you know, what those social responsibilities are.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we do. Yes, we
Yeah.
do. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. Ooh, this is a good episode.
They're all
Thank
great
you.
This
episodes,
is
but
good. I know, man.
always fire.
They are always so on fire. I'm just,
And see,
you know, I
even
will say
in,
that. Go
go
ahead,
for
Quan.
No, you go ahead. No, you.
Oh, you go. No, you go.
even in talking about kind of being honest about, I don't know, like, nobody knows. It is okay. People want you to be competent. Competence comes in different ways. Competence does not mean being an expert about things. I want to make that kind of very clear. You can be very knowledgeable. I caution, or I challenge the idea of being an expert in certain things, because there are always things that you learn. You can be very knowledgeable and of the most knowledgeable. But, and some of the things that we've kind of been talking about at the Dallas Opera is that it's not a matter of getting it perfect. It's a matter of being able to build the structure so that once we do make a mistake, because it's going to come, that we have the structures in place, we have the humility in place, we have the connection in place to say, okay, what do we need to learn? What do we need to look at? What conversations do we need to have? What difficult conversations are necessary? Let's get through those conversations. Let's learn. Let's keep moving. Because again, it's going to look and feel different. And we are creating something we have yet to actually experience. Jerry Hawkins says it so often, you know, we're creating a new world. We're creating something different. People don't do this normally. This is not normal. So we are creating something that we have yet to fully experience and truly see. So it's not a matter of, I need to know everything, or to expect someone to know everything. It's to expect individuals, to expect groups, to expect organizations to be able to say, oh, okay, let's learn together. Let's move this forward together.
And trying our best, you
Let's
know,
our best.
at
Let's
least
show up.
trying our best, you know, and figuring out how to not achieve perfection, but excellence.
Right.
You know, and I do have to say though, like, you know, on the part of, you know, expertise, we are the expert of our personal experiences, and that is uniquely our own. And no one else is going to have that. And, you know, and I think, you know, in finding our superpowers, we also have to learn how to use that superpower for good, right? And then really using that superpower as your voice, and use your voice. you know, whether that's filling out the census, going to vote, or, you know, figuring out if I'm going to go in a field of creativity, engineering, you know, whatever innovation that comes next, it's really being mindful about using your voice. Because when you're fearful of whatever context of perfection or judgment, or, you know, whatever, you know, those things come about, it's like you're in your lane. Like you're in the lane that you know how to best drive, and you know yourself best. And like if anybody's gonna criticize you, like that's them projecting a lot of their fears of probably not taking that plunge or taking that risk, or never using their voice in the way that you are doing your truth. You know, like just remembering that kind of stuff, you know, helps really kind of shed a lot of that worries away. You know, because we've definitely had people that have, you know, try to unpack like the motivation of what we do, that we just want to tokenize, you know, the refugee community and exploit immigrant population because they're marginalized, and, you know, that we're out, you know, in this for the fame and whatever good comes with that. And it's like, honestly, like, it's amazing what people will attach to this work. And we're always going to be criticized for doing this work because it's hard work. It's social justice work. It's work that needs to be done. And it's, you know, the people who don't want to do the work that is going to be doing a lot of that talking, but not a lot of the walking. So, you know, and I urge every single one of the people that you know is called for this work, that, you know, it doesn't come easy, you know, and people are going to say a lot of things, you know, but I know in my heart of hearts, in my deepest truth, that this has all been homage to my mother's legacy. It is my love letter to our city. It's the work that we want to contribute to our country. And as I've said time and time again, we are always on the side of freedom. We want the freedom to choose. We want the freedom to innovate. We want the freedom to really grow, you know, and that doesn't come from a stifled environment that, you know, letting people tell you no. It's like, oh no, you think I can't do this? Well, let me tell you 3 billion ways of how I can.
and let me show you 4 of how I'm actually going to get it done.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Already did it.
Yeah, I already did. I did it last week. Wait, no, you know, no, yeah. It's, I, you know, I think about just something in what you said about people projecting things onto you. And I find that in any kind of work, when you're trying to correct wrongs, you're trying to right wrongs, you get a lot of that. And, you know, it brings me, because I want to ask a question that, and I don't know how specific you want to get, because there are a lot of layers to this particular question. I want to know about some of your experiences being a leader, being a business owner, being a woman of color, trying to do these things, because you talked about your background in marketing and advertisement and how you use so you have the business side of this, right? I want to make it clear to our audience that this is somebody who has worked in corporate, okay, who has done the corporate thing. You can name them if you want. That's your business.
Who's worked in restaurants.
Who's worked in restaurants.
Yes.
Okay. Who, you know, who's done the scope, if you will, and has landed here. So I want to talk about some of your experiences, some of the things that you that you've encountered, some of the things you've had to go up against, either because, well, I mean, honestly, as a woman of color, being a business owner, being a leader, how I almost want to say, how did you do it? Because, and I asked that to almost
I'm still trying to figure it out. You know, and to be honest, like I know I have a lot of privilege because I come from a caste system that I have lighter skin. I know that, you know, the value has been placed on the color of my skin and the part of the world that I come from. I know the privilege that comes along with that. And, you know, but that doesn't mean that because I'm Asian, I'm submissive. Because I'm Asian woman, that I'm hypersexualized. It doesn't mean, you know, that I'm going to be subservient in any way, shape, or form, you know, and there's a lot of stereotypes. That it doesn't mean that I'm a model minority, that I come from money, that, you know, that I just started this business because I can afford to. I assure you, I cannot. Like there is no way, you know. And this, you know, the business is you know, definitely shuttered because of the pandemic, you know. But even, you know, when we were at full steam, we were definitely at a point, it's like a social enterprise. It's, you know, set up like a benefit corporation that, you know, it benefits the community. It's not supposed to benefit me and solely me. And that's where, you know, the thinking has to come about, as we have to re-educate people that, you know, that we're artists investing in the community, you know. And why is it that artists don't get the same respect as doctors or lawyers? And yeah, and you know, Sara Cardona from Teatro Dallas definitely has said this. Yes. And you know, as we are a part of Culture Bank that, you know, is an SMU project with YBCA. And so, like, you know, there's a lot of things that we have to unpack, you know. And as a woman of color, I am often the token Asian in the room, just as the ladies are the only hijabis in the room. And you know, there is so much that, you know, we have to think about what race, what skin color, colorism as used as currency, and you know, how race gets talked about, you know, with access to funding, to investment. And you know, when we talk about social impact investment, we would just always get, you know, so close. It's like, oh, you just have a lot of heart, but you don't have enough logistics.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, damn it, you know, like, you know, we've had incredible relationships with, you know, the Hunt Institute over at SMU that, you know, help us, you know, do those kind of, you know, data analytics and make us sound really good on paper when we apply for grants. And even though we're a social enterprise, that's a for-profit social enterprise, that, you know, a lot of people think, oh, you have to be a nonprofit to do this work, you know. And it's shifting those gears too, is helping people understand that, and re-educate, you know. The need to invest in a community is just as important as investing in a company to do well, to, you know, have return of investment as commerce. You know, art can marry commerce.
Yes.
And, you know, and there's ways that you can invest in people and it will come back to you in tenfolds, if not, you know, if not more. And so, so I think it's things like that we have to really, really understand, that we have to shift our values. Our value system really has to change. You know, I think we definitely grew up on that thinking, that notion, you know, coming to America, that, you know, it's about me, and not we. And you know, that individualism, that microwaved individualism, you know, like, get it, get rich, get fast, and you know, but not like, you know, sit and simmer and let that slow cook, and you know, and then, you know, come back, you know, to whatever, you know, all those time and you know, energy and all that invested, to really kind of see what, you know, what that looks like in long term, instead of just this short term outcome. You know, like there's so many times that, you know, people dip their big toe in and it's like, oh, the water's cold, I'm getting out. And it's like, is it never going to get warm? No, like it will, you know, and you can put your whole leg in and you can actually swim, and in such amazing place if you just like take the time to invest in your communities, you know. And that's the thing, it's like, you know, there's a lot of misconceptions about that. And so I'm actually a member of the Orchid Giving Circle. It's a fund that is supported by the Texas Women Foundation, and it is a lot about that, you know. Asian American nonprofits typically only get about 3% of the funding, you know, throughout a lot of this philanthropic work, because there's misconceptions that, oh, you people are already rich. Like, why, you know, like there's a ton of immigrants and refugees fall in that highly impoverished areas, that they can never access the loans, or, you know, or the housing, or, you know, the economic status that you know, that most Black and brown people already understand, you know. But like people just think, oh, well, you're Asian, you know, that never happens to you. And you know, it's really disconcerting what happens along the way. And so I think how I'm still trying to break that bamboo ceiling. It still exists, you know. It's not something that I say it should go away, and it does, you know. But I'm fortunate that many of the women at the Orchid Giving Circle, my sisters there, my sisters here at the Dallas Opera, you know, are helping me amplify my voice. You know, I, as I said, am already a squeaky wheel. You know, like there are people that are just very generous and, you know, giving me airtime to let me be squeakier, to talk about things that really need to talk about, and unpack whatever creative solution that, you know, needs to come along to figure that out. And I am definitely not your typical Asian stereotype. Contrary to popular opinions, I did not excel in math or science growing up. Art was what I chose because I didn't speak English when I came to the States. I was 13, you know. I was like trying to figure out, okay, I'm stuck in an ESL, English as a second language class that the school, you know, created for me, because I'm like the first Asian kid that showed up at you know, at the house that didn't know what was going on. You know, like I hung out with the Black kids and the punk rockers at lunch because no one else would talk to me, you know. And like it's trying to figure out those things along the way that made me just realize, like, if I don't speak up for myself, no one else will. And, you know, and once I get here, it's like, okay, I wasn't always this brave. You know, I got brave because there were mentors, sponsors along the way that said, you know, wow, you know, this is actually really good. If you just tweak this, you can get even better. And along the way, you know, maybe you should talk to this person, or, you know, point me in that direction. And, you know, like if I didn't have access to any of that, I wouldn't be where I am today, you know. But yes, it took, you know, some, you know, white male mentors, and, you know, and some white women, you know, that you know, that said, you know, we'll help you along the way. Take that help when it's needed, but that's not the only place where it's going to come from, you know. But understand what is happening, that it is white supremacy, and dismantle it as you see it, as you go. But, you know, you're gonna find allies along the way. Not all of them are gonna be like tone deaf, you know, and some of them are genuinely here to help because they understand our plight. And so I think, you know, I really just try to connect with people authentically and genuinely in that way, and realize that I'm not in this just for me. I'm in this for the common good. There is a greater good than just this, and you know what is going to be greater for all of us. And I try to figure out, you know, what does that look like along the way, and you know, and just kind of figure it out as I go. But it definitely has been challenging. You know, we don't have the same kind of access to funding or to resources or capacity as a lot of people do. And I think because I am a woman and because I am a person of color, I don't have the same kind of access or reach as most people do. And so I think, you know, I try a little harder, and it's sad that I have to try that much harder to achieve, you know, what we have achieved now. But I just think about, you know, what we do here is trailblazing for the women who come after us. And, you know, if we don't like chop down all this overgrown grass, like nobody's gonna be able to, you know, take this path along the way. And it's definitely the path that's less taken, but it just has to be done. You know, I hate to see this continue, because it's no way for a woman or a woman of color, you know, in this day and age to exist. And I think we were complacent for a long time. I think a lot of people, you know, turned a blind eye to a lot of the situations, all the social unjust that we have experienced. And it's taken a lot of trauma for us to realize that it's time to do this work. And if that's what happens, if it, you know, I mean, it's so sad to think about all the deaths that have occurred, but if it takes someone to die for justice to happen, if it takes a fire for people to understand there's climate change, if it, you know, if it takes, you know, this kind of trauma for change to happen, then, you know, then there's a lot of work to be done. And like, let's hold hands and let's get this work done.
And let's
I had just said that to Quo. I said, it has to get so bad before you go, wait a minute, we have a problem. Why is that?
To say, oh no, I had no idea. Just no. Yes, things have been bad. And
it's been bad for a long time. It's
very long time.
Hundreds of thousands of years of oppression that we're talking about here.
Well, and we've survived. I think it's something to be said about surviving through that. I mean, just hearing the story of your parents, you know, and you know, things like that, and the way you've been able to build off of it. And I always tell people, think about being born in a place that wasn't for you.
It wasn't.
Because you just said you grew up in a place across the sea that wasn't for you. Well, I was born in a country that really hasn't been on my side, really.
Right.
You know? And so I don't think people understand. Well, to me, that talks about human connection right there, how we can be from completely different places and have some of the same experiences. Exactly. And the fact of the matter is that you've taken something that is a human need and turned it into this, turn it into this big thing. And then the fact that you said that people are coming to you saying that you're taking advantage of refugees and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, she's this daughter of immigrants. Like, are you serious with this? Like, that's the
Things
Like,
have to get really bad before they get good, Christian.
you know, like she is an immigrant. Like you
then,
really said that to her, but it doesn't. Again, it doesn't surprise me. I say that, you know, I'm feigning shock at that, but
clutching your pearls.
we've heard some of the same things. Like, is it
Exactly.
really that bad? Is it really that bad?
You're not being
know?
paranoid.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
And
if you just
unpack
follow the
for me,
law.
what is it like to be Black, and how
Yeah.
has it been that bad? You
It's
know,
really that bad. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
it
Like,
must
Are
be
you sure
great.
it's not just,
Yeah.
you know? And then they come up with some,
right.
you know, and that's not to say that some people that are asking those questions are not asking those questions because they really want to know. It's just that after you hear that over and over and over again, well, my grandmother used to say that a constant drip on a rock will eventually wear a hole.
Yes.
And we're seeing those holes right now with the country is, part of the country is literally on fire. It's on fire, you know. And then but it's not on fire. I mean, but it's also on fire metaphorically, you know.
Yes.
Like there are problems, and there are things that we need to fix. And I think it's why it's important, you know, for an organization like yours, for the work that Quo does, for the work that I do, and the way we move and we try to do this, because we are still trying to. The idea is community and connection. Quo says together we can heal, and I really believe that that is the only way that it's going to happen, is that we talk to each other just like we're doing right now, and we're putting it up for people to see and draw their own conclusion and ask their own questions,
and then have your own conversations,
right? And just but be intentional about it, you know.
Yes.
And like I'm sick of going to another lecture and then like not knowing what to do afterwards. It's like, you know, there's got to be action steps, and you know, and there are things as basic as, you know, getting a mentor, figuring out who you connect with, finding your superpower, using your voice. Like, there is action steps, you know. You can certainly, you know, find your people and your tribe, try to unpack, you know, what the challenges along the way are. But we ourselves have a lot of work to do. You know, even though I'm doing this work, I still have a lot of learning to do. I probably have a ton of biases that I still need to, you know, unpack myself, you know. And as my friend Dr. Candace Blesso always says, you know, it's like we sit at the, you know, at this intersectionality of so many different places, and understanding where we fit. It's because of those intersections that it's not just the popular trendy word, you know. It's like, it's not just a vocabulary that just came up to make us look good. It's no, it's where we are, and we have to figure out what direction to take with that, and not just, you know, take it for granted that you know, that we have this knowledge and then, you know, like not do anything with it.
That's it.
Yeah, because
well, and it's almost it's a disservice, you know, in a lot of ways, when you have you have some tools, and you see, you know, wrong going on, and you can't do everything. Quote, I talk about that all the time. Finding your lane. You said finding your superpowers. Whatever it is, you're not going to be able to cover everything all the time.
But that's why you work with others.
Yes,
like
that's why you
suck
work
at
with
protesting. Like, I'm just not, you know, like I'm not good at that. So I let people who know how to use a megaphone, who how to build really incredible signs, who know how to organize hundreds and thousands of people to march, you know. So like that's their lane. That's what they do. That's like, go for it, you know. But I'm really good at this. I love food. I love to eat. And so I'm just going to cook and change minds, and, you know, and shift narratives, and, you know, like I'm going to do this, you know. And whether the ladies are going to start, you know, packaging cookies to sell at, you know, maybe niche markets or specialty markets, and, you know, we dive into different ways of feeding people, whatever that looks like, you know, God willing, inshallah, as they say in Arabic, you know, whatever that is, you know, hopefully the universe, you know, because it closed one door, it will open another window for us, you know, and like, that's what we pray for, right? But we're also going to work really, really hard to usher that along the way. And, you know, and so like it's gonna be a lot of walking. It's not just a lot of talking, you know, but it takes a mixture of the two. And it's also just, you know, maybe if I talk about it enough that, you know, someone will listen and
Yes.
think of a solution for us. And, you know, because we don't know what we're doing, and, you know, we'd love some, you know, someone to kind of help us out along the way. That all that's okay to admit, you know, because
Mhm.
we're all perfectly imperfect beings.
Yes.
Yep.
And, you know, being in this together, thank goodness, you know, because I wouldn't have been able to get through this, you know, this pandemic, this virus. All this is like really has disrupted how we communicate, how we network, and how
Mhm.
we bond with each other.
Mhm.
But human beings are group animals or social beings, you know,
Come
and
on
we
now.
find ways to do this. And just like this, you know, Quo and I met pre-pandemic, but, you know, but we're connecting that dot along the way.
Mhm.
And she's led me to you, and then you know, have led me. I mean, I've already known about Dallas Opera, but now I just love it even more. You know, but it's like there's just, you know, and all the people who support the arts, you know, who will be listening in this, hopefully will be able to take a soundbite of this, a digestible soundbite of this, and, you know, and figure it out, you know, what that works for them along the
Yeah.
way, do
Mhm.
something about it, you know. And we don't obviously have all the solutions, but it's really the willingness to share it, and that's the thing, we just want, you know, people to understand that, you know, our communities are heart and soul, you
Mhm.
know. And the more that we lift our neighbors, we're lifting ourselves, and
Yes.
understanding that we're in this together, that is really going to help us innovate how we connect, innovate how we network, innovate how we come together as a community. I hope that, you know, that there's always hope, you know, in
Yeah.
all this. And that I hope that, you know, that we come out of this with a brighter future. Yeah.
I
I
think.
was. I think it's. And I think we will. And I think it's gonna. You know, we say on this show all the time that this is a period of self-examination
Mm-hmm.
and really looking at where the holes are. And
Mm-hmm.
I will admit myself, it has. I have, you know, found out things about myself, and I'm like, Lord, where did that come from? But I think it's important that we take the time to look at
Mhm.
ourselves and look at ourselves within the context of where we are and in our roles of where we are. Um,
Okay to do that. It's necessary.
absolutely.
You rob yourself of so many things when you don't. I know I rob myself of so many things when I don't take the time to sit back and like, why did I do that?
Hmm.
Or this person said this or prefers this or has communicated these things, right? You listen with deep listening, you hear the question behind the question, but that deep listening also takes humility and not
Yes.
becoming offended immediately about things or not becoming defensive immediately about things, but kind of getting to the core of, oh, okay, what
Yes,
can,
and but
where's
be
the humility?
careful, because us women, we were raised to self-criticize
Oh, I wasn't.
and think, you know, oh, I definitely was. And like, you know, when things go wrong, it's like, okay, where did I go wrong?
Where did
You
I
know,
go?
what could I have done better? And,
Wow.
you know, and a lot of times I arrive at a situation with an imposter syndrome, you know.
Yeah, and that's real.
Mm.
That is
Yeah, and
real.
like, you know, getting
Ooh.
in a program with all these awesome people, and it's like, okay, well, I I know I applied and I got in, like, but what am I doing that's
What
like
a,
changing
yeah.
lives, you know, that earned me the
And
place
that
here?
is
And it's like,
real because
right?
that's when you look up and you realize nobody knows.
No.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Well,
Because
and
it's
not only
different
that either,
skills that
I
people
would
had.
say
Different people had
that.
access to different things to
Yeah.
develop different skills and advantage, right? There's
Yes.
advantage, but that does not define worthiness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's real. That imposter syndrome is real, and you got to cut it off.
Well,
Yeah.
it sneaks up on you because it'll mess
Mm-hmm.
around and sneak up on you because you will have worked your tail clean off.
Mhm.
You know, you would have put in the work, you'd have overworked, and then you look back and go, how am I here? And I think, as I will say this, as people of color, honestly, I mean, it's sometimes not, it's hard not to realize, because you're like, I'm the only one in the room,
I'm the only one.
you know, and that's that. And was this an affirmative action thing? You know, you it really,
Oh,
and
I
then
did all that. I'm like the
and then look,
diversity speaker.
Yeah.
I have
The
a,
check
but then
box.
I have,
Oh, inclusion.
look,
Okay, we got the Asian
yes,
chick.
Yeah.
and it's hard, but the thing is that I have gotten shaken by people, by my friends, by family, by mentors who have gone, you don't have anything to prove to anybody. You got there, didn't you? You know, and what can you say to somebody that's, you know, 73, 74 years old? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, you're right.
And you
Okay,
are where you're
I'm
supposed to be,
behaving.
right? You are where you are supposed to be. That imposter
Exactly.
syndrome it'll sneak up on you because so much of the supremacy ideals don't make sense. And so
Yeah.
when people are pushing those ideas that don't make sense, this perfectionism, the individualism, the fact that I'm an expert on these things, no, everybody's in the room for a certain reason. There are people who are not in the room for other reasons that were deliberate. And so I always take it as we are there to dine with others, as we are there at the table to share with everyone else. We're there because it's a reason. We're there because we have something to give. And one of the things that we also have to give is our place as we do what we need to do at the table, and then extend that table and then move out of the way so
Somebody else.
so other people can join at this table.
Yeah, like don't suck up all the air, you know, and or the oxygen. And but you know that it is such a difficult and delicate mix, right? And I always joke, like people ask me, you know, well, how do you do it? How are you, you know, how are you balancing all this? Is like, I'm not balancing it. Like there are definitely things that over tip and do all kinds of juggling, and like I think I'm acrobatic, but there are all kinds of dishes falling, you know, and breaking at the same time. But there is a way to mix it so it's right for you. And you know, as we've talked about, you know, that doesn't come as like a perfect, you know, whatever, but the happy mediums do exist, but you have to be in control of that. And I think that's the thing. It's like, you know, trying to figure out what that looks like for us at this time. It's I think we were at that moment that, you know, all these things were happening, and this has kind of offered a pause. And like you said, you know, that moment of reflection that is really great for this time of pause. And you know, but make it meaningful and make it work. You know, I know that everybody gets, you know, overwhelmed with all the Zoom calls or you know, another podcast or another, you know, virtual lecture and whatnot, you know, but all this stuff that we're consuming is going somewhere.
Right.
Like, don't squeeze any good stuff out. but like, be a good little sponge and figure out, you know, where this is taking us, and being responsible for the materials that we're taking in, and figuring out, you know, what that looks like, and grow, like, and do something about it. I think it's going to be really good. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, you actually just answered our last question. Last question was, what is your advice for others? And I think you just covered it. But this is the part of the show where I turn it over to Quo for positive notes, because, you know, what you do is just, it's incredible. And the fact that you have gained national attention by doing something that you saw your mother doing. I mean, people, I think it's incredible. So I just wanted to just gush a little bit on that. I think that what you're doing is a beautiful thing. I think the fact that you took the sum of your backgrounds, your education, your informal education of watching your mother, your raising, your experiences, your artistic prowess, and all of these things, and ended up doing something like this. You brought it back to something that is so simple, and that is the human need for sustenance. I think it's brilliant. And
Thank you.
You know, let's, you know, folks out there, please, by all means, we're going to put some You know, we're gonna tag her if you want to get a hold of her, and there'll be
Yeah,
websites.
so you know, so honestly, when we were in the BBVA Compass program, we got accepted into this incubator program. Like only, you know, like 18 people got in, and 4 of them were people of color. And it was a national program, but it was actually we got in the national program, but it's actually an international program for the bank. And they did the momentum program because BBVA is actually huge in Spain, in Turkey, and Mexico, and here in the U.S. And so they had incubators throughout the world. And what Break Bread Break Borders is doing is actually nothing new under the sun. And you know, they had another program that was in Turkey that actually they were sponsoring, that was also another catering company that was working with refugees. They weren't doing the storytelling that we were doing, but you know, but there's a ton of different programs. IRC has one called Spice Kitchen that's out in Salt Lake City, and like, you know, we had seen the business model work, that when you invest in people, what the return of investment looks like. You know, and to be honest, like, you know, if we were to invest in all the immigrants and refugees and naturalize them, you know, as citizens, like our GDP would literally grow, I think, from probably about like 35 to maybe $43 billion in the next 10 years. And so, like, you know, it's I think that was from, I want to say, it was one of the amazing institutes that we work with, actually, that just recently did that study. And so, you know, it's not rocket science, but it is rocket science.
Yeah.
You know,
Make you feel like it.
and like it's really just we just didn't see one in our own backyard, and we thought, what if? And we were crazy enough to just, you know, go and do it, because our communities needed it, you know, and that's the thing, that's, you know, the community response, and that, but it's really, a lot of this time is not just going to be about, you know, about absorbing, and, you know, it's, and talking and sharing information. It's going to be a lot of deep listening also. And because our communities are really going to tell us what we need along the way. And we're going to need a lot of creative solutions to come out of this recession. And and whatever those are, you know, artists, we are the creative problem solvers, you know, and we're, a lot of people are going to look to us, you know, to come up with those creative solutions, and to unpack all the possibilities that really will, you know, come with this along the way. And I think, you know, that's the part that, you know, it's time for to really realize our worth, and dismantle all those, you know, systemic prejudices against, you know, what we do, because what we do is so important. And you know, mind you, yes, we're millions, you know, down because of this challenge, but you know, sometimes we're the most creative when we have the least amount of resources. So yeah, celebrate that.
Real talk. That's real talk.
Yes, I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you.
No,
you too.
No, we brought you
by the
on.
Way. Oh, by the
way. This became your show the minute we got you to be a guest. So please, by all means. All right, Quo, final thoughts, positive notes. Let's go.
Positive notes. I would say, as we said earlier, take note in what it means to provide, to truly seek equity. It's not going to just be you giving what you think you already have, or giving what you think is important. It's a matter of putting in the additional steps to make sure that people can actually have access, and then can actually show up as their full selves. I would say take heart in knowing that it is being done, and it's being done in different ways. Take heart in knowing that you don't have to do it alone. And I would say that as you are giving what we need, right, you found a way to connect through the things that we need. We all have to eat. We all need sustenance for the body. I would say that in that you are also providing the connection, which is what we need. That's that sustenance that we need for the soul. So as we lean into the things that we truly need, which is connection, as we lean into the things that we truly need, which is deep listening and making sure that we're supporting our communities, know that once we focus on those things that we need, we don't have to do it alone, as I always say, but again, that it's contagious. It's a matter of what you're willing to do, how much you're willing to actually truly commit, and then what you're willing to do as we break bread and break borders. So those are my positive notes.
So much potential. Thank you. Yes. Thank you for those words of wisdom.
So this is where we wrap up, folks. You know, I want to thank you all for tuning in. We have a lot of calls to action in this. There's so many things that could be done. Be brave, be bold, okay? Be loud if necessary. But thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Jin-Ya, for being with us today.
Thank you for holding space for me. Yeah.
We're glad to do it. And folks, thank you all for continuing to support us, and we'll see you next week.
All right. See you next week.
Perfect.